Morning. We are so happy that y'all have been able to come out and join us. Got a lot of exciting things planned for you this morning. And again, I'm Hope DeJarnett from Higgins Funeral Home, and we welcome you. We are doing our 10th annual spring workshop. And again, thank you for coming out. We're just a couple of minutes behind, so want to move right along. We're happy to have with us this morning the fine folks from Fayetteville Public Utilities. And I'm going to turn things over now to Britt Dye. Good morning, Britt.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Hope. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. That's how you get rid of the coronavirus, you know, all smiles and giggles and all that kind of stuff. You know, we don't want to panic, so we just keep carrying on every day. So with that, we have Katie Burke, who is the Executive Secretary, Kim Posey, who is the Assistant Manager and the Chief of Finance, and Dana Pollock, Key Accounts, and also Energy Right, and Don and Sir Mac with our marketing and advertising, those kinds of things. So at this time, what we're going to do, we're going to demonstrate a little bit on Energy Right, and then we got some packages for you. But on the table, you'll find some forms that needs to be filled out, and then you'll do the survey at the end of Dana's presentation, and then we'll be able to hand out some of these packets, and then I'll cover some scam issues that's going on. I'll also tell you some vision and the direction that FPU is going in the future for about the next 15 to 20 years. As we work on our strategic plan and our succession planning, those kinds of things, and how we are prepared for the coronavirus as well. So, Dana?
Okay, good morning. My name is Dana, and as Britt said, I am over the Key Accounts, Economic Development, and also Energy Right program. And I think last year when y'all met, you talked over our E-Score program. We went through that about making your home more energy efficient. So today we're going to cover that and expand on that a little bit through these demos here. But through our E-Score program, you can sign up through that, and you can also have a TVA representative come to your home and do an energy audit. Typically that costs $75, but what you get with that is they come and they go through your entire house and look at your windows, your doors. They also look at things like your heating and cooling unit. Is it running properly? Also your insulation, anything to do with energy efficiency. And then what you receive is they'll go back and do a report and tell you the top 10 things you need to work on with your house to make it more energy efficient. So like I said, typically that's a $75 program. You can sign up through the internet. There's also that 1-800 number you can call, and if you're interested in doing that, you can just give me a call at the office. But that's some ways TVA and FPU help you with your energy bill to lower it as much as possible. Some other things that program also does is they offer finance through Vanderbilt Mortgage. If you need help up to $15,000, they'll finance a heating and cooling unit if you have one go out, and they'll finance it up to 10 years. They'll also finance windows and I believe insulation, some things like that. You just have to apply via the phone or the internet. So what we'll do today is I'm going to go through some of these demo boards here and show you some different things on lighting and air ducts and things like that. But also all the paperwork that's in front of you, if you will fill out the form about the home energy audit or the home energy presentation. There's two forms. The first one's just going to get information. The second one is on just rating how our presentation was. But with that, we're going to give each of you that fill out these forms one of these energy kits. And these are full of things that you can use, little small projects that you can, well, it's not going to open. There it comes. So it's going to have some caulk for windows and doors. There are 2 tubes of that. There's some LED lights. I think there's 2 of those. There's some foam that you use to fill in any gaps or holes around plumbing and things like that. You've got a nice little LED night light. It's a window insulation kit. And this is some of the, this is just a little chart that tells you like energy usage of different appliances. This is some door seal items. And so there may be a few other little things in there, but that's a lot of things that you can do around your house to make some things a little more energy efficient. So we'll start right here with this lighting demo. So what this is going to show you, there we go. This is just going to show you regular light bulbs. This is the older type light bulbs that a lot of people still have in their house. And this number right here is telling you how many watts that this light bulb is using. And so it's still going up and down, but it's using about 61 watts, just that one light bulb. So up here we have 4 different kinds of LEDs in different sizes, and we'll just turn on one here. You'll see how bright that is. Because as it's settling down, that one light bulb is only using 9 watts. So this one's using 60, but this one's only using 9. So just changing out some of your light bulbs in your home can save you a lot of energy. So, and we can flip on all 4 of these that are different sizes. And all 4, they're running about 35 watts. So all 4 of those light bulbs are still using almost half of what that one light bulb, older light bulb is. So, you know, I know a lot of these LEDs cost more than these older type, but they save you a lot more energy, and they're supposed to last a lot longer as well in your house. So one thing that I've done is, just like each time you go to Walmart, you might pick up a pack and just slowly replace them so it's not that expensive, and just, you know, or replace one light fixture at a time. So each month or something, and then by the time you'll have your entire house done in a little while. And that'll just help on your energy bill. And those are quite bright. Okay, let's see. So this little demo is going to show, we have, I think there's some in this packet that you're going to get, but they're liners that go behind the outlet plugs. And if you see, without one, even air can come through your outlets and come into your house and cool or heat up your house during the summer and winter. So that just shows you that it does come through there. And if you put those little, with the gaskets, I think is what it's called, it's not as bad. It just helps a little bit. That's just one small thing you can do. So this also shows some seals. You know, they're using the foam around different openings in your home. A lot of times it's electrical wiring and stuff you can fill in around, but also plumbing. If you, where they cut holes to put your plumbing through, they might sometimes leave just gaps in there, and you can fill those in. I may need some help with this other one. I think we did it before we smoked it. Okay, this one is on your duct seal under your house, or sometimes it'll be in the attic of your home. But this top one is sealed. It's just got some wrap around it, and this bottom one is not sealed. So when I turn this on, And I don't know if you'll be able to see it in the very back, but when I turn this on, you should be able to see some smoke coming through here. That just shows you that at times your duct sealing will leak. And so like you're heating in air, if this is under your house, then you're going to be heating or cooling the underneath part of your house, not the part you want to heat and cool. So we'll see if this is going to work. You can see some coming through there. So, and that's not, if it's under your house, you just have to get somebody to help you do that, but it's basically just a special kind of tape that they go around, and tape, and there's also some putty type stuff they can caulk around each of the joints. So that's just 3 things that will aid in your energy efficiency of your home. And some of the other things that we haven't shown here, but that you can also look at, is different types of insulation. I know if you lived in your house a long time and you haven't added insulation in a while, sometimes that insulation just degrades and it'll pack down. So if you need to add some more to the top of that, that will also help your heating and cooling in the winter and summer months. But with that, I think I've covered about everything I can think of. And I'll just remind you to fill out those forms, and we'll get each one of you a kit, or each couple a kit, as you turn in your forms after we get through with this presentation. Does anybody have any questions about any of our programs? No? All right.
Thank you, Dana. Very, very important how you energize, your home, but at the same time, the way that you insulate and keep all this from happening, the better and tighter your home's going to be when it comes to heating and air conditioning in your home. So we have a lot of problems sometimes with customers when they have high bill complaints, and we'll go out and we can put a piece of equipment on and can tell you where the problem is somewhat. We can tell you if it's using what the meter is saying that it's using. If the meter's measuring so many kilowatt hours, and then we put this piece of equipment on to be sure they even up and say, yeah, it is using what the meter says, or we'll put another meter beside that meter in parallel so we can be sure that both meters are reading the same. So at the same time with your information, we also handed out some of this right here for the scams. Please read that, because we have customers that do call in and wanting to know why we're calling them to pay a bill or write a check or give us your charge card number, those kinds of things. We will not call you and tell you to give us a payment over the phone. We don't do that. We won't call and tell you to send us a check. We won't do any of that. The call is originated from the customer, not from FPU, okay? So we won't be calling you and asking for payment. Like I said, we do not do that. Some of the other direction that we're moving, we do have AMI, which is Advanced Meter Infrastructure. You can see that we've changed a lot of meters out on the homes now where we can get the readings that actually come into the office. It helps us in many ways, like if it's outages that are occurring, we can kind of run down the area of where the outages are nowadays, and it maps it out into our SCADA system, which is Supervisor Control and Data Acquisition. We haven't got all the meters changed on the water side, but primarily all on electric, and on gas has been changed. So we can get that information. We can't see what's going on in your house or hear conversations or anything like that. All we get is data from that meter. So you either got a power outage, we do have theft on our meters where people steal electricity. We can tell when they pull the meter, cut the seals, those kinds of things. So it's helping us, when it comes to trying to figure out what's actually going on with our entire system. So it does help, especially with a big power outage. Another direction that we're moving is right now we're out 20 to 25 years on the electric side for infrastructure that's going to be built and replaced over the next 25 years according to our load forecast. Those kinds of things. Also on the gas and water and wastewater, we're doing a 5-year outcast, I guess you could say, to some degree, of what we're going to be doing on the infrastructure for water and wastewater and gas. Water and wastewater has been a big concern for us because there's a lot of updating that needs to be made, a lot of infrastructure replacing, all those kinds of things, especially on the wastewater side. Water side's in pretty good shape, but we've come a long ways on that. And you'll see us working around town with contractors of pipe bursting, new taps and those kinds of things. So we were treating more rainwater at the wastewater plant than we actually were the sewer water. So when you start treating a lot of rainwater, it makes costs go really, really high. And we're trying to keep that from happening on inflow and infiltration where there's cracked pipes or folks that's got gutters, they hammer tapped into our sewer system and things. The storm drains, we have found some storm drains that's tied into our wastewater system. We had to get all that fixed. Still like a lot more to get fixed because the system, some of the systems, is late 40s, early 50s. It needs to be replaced and, it's just gone away. So some of it's just a hole in the ground actually where the wastewater actually runs through the bottom of the ground right there. So we're trying to fix all that. EPA and TDEC, all those folks has gotten very, very strict to how we do our business. They're getting more strict and making out more rules. They're coming up with more testing that we have to provide to the public to be sure that we're safe and y'all trust us in what we're doing with all the work. So we got guidelines we have to follow. They come in and inspect us. We have to be sure we pass all the inspections, not only on the wastewater side, but on the water side as well. So, and more of those tests are coming up. So when people asked about the coronavirus of drinking water, the way that we treat our water, that's not a concern at this time. Wastewater, that is treated the same. It goes out from our wastewater plant just as clear as water does coming in from the river when we get ready to treat it for drinking water. So we have to be very, very sure that we meet all the guidelines of the state and EPA. We have also required some more grant money that we're looking for on the what they call the SRF, which is State Revolving Fund. And we're going to be doing a lot of water replacement, almost a little better than $11 million. We hope to get some more pipe because a lot of it's galvanized pipe and those kinds of things. So we're trying to get all that replaced throughout the system. What we don't want to do is if you have an industry or a subdivision that comes into the city of Fayetteville, we don't want to hold them back because we cannot supply the services. We got to be able to supply services to those folks that come in, especially industry, like I said, subdivisions, several different homes being built in the subdivision, those kinds of things. When I first came into this position, actually what we had on the wastewater side was in a moratorium on two parts of the city. We had one on the west side of the city and we had one on the south side of the city. And a moratorium means that you can hook nobody up, so you will stop in progress, right? So our first thing that we had to try to do is get out of the moratoriums and go to hooking up services, offer services, and those kinds of things. So we try to be there before industry or a subdivision comes in with our new infrastructure. We're building everything bigger, costs more, a lot of work to do, as I've said before, and we got a lot more to do. So we'll keep moving forward as long as we can get some help on the state revolving fund stuff because it's low interest money and those kinds of things. But the other thing is telecom. I know a lot of you's interested in broadband, especially if you live out in a rural community. We offer internet throughout the entire city. We got some parts of the county that we offer internet. We have applied for some grants through the states. They're very big about getting underserved areas served with cable communications. We have built a fiber line into Petersburg. Matter of fact, I got a call one day this week of trying to partner with somebody, United Telesystems, I think, and see if we can get some services that direction. We've applied for a grant down around Blanche in those areas as well to extend our fiber, and offer some rural broadband. It's very, very expensive when it comes to telecommunications, and it's hard to get a lot of grants, because it takes several $1 million to build the infrastructure. So it's not that easy to get those funds. And electric and water and wastewater and telecom and natural gas. It keeps us pretty well busy, especially when we start expanding out more in the county. We have water out in the county to some degree. We have gas out in the county. We go all the way into Ardmore, actually, with our natural gas plant. So we did buy some Athens customers down in there that had customers on the Tennessee side, along with the customers on the Alabama side. So we bought those customers from them that's on the Tennessee side. We do serve electric into Madison, Alabama a little bit. We go a little bit in Bedford, Marshall County, Giles County, Winchester, those other areas we expand. So, when we have a power outage, if it's widespread or if it's countywide, we have close to about 19,000 customers out. So, our phone system works pretty good, but it's limited to a certain degree of how many calls it can take at one time. And, we get a lot of folks upset because they can't get through, but you can't take, if you got an entire outage for the county, you can't take 19,000 calls, right? So we try to get that number down. And then if we're affecting the cable side, if we're affecting the water side or the gas side at the same time, overall we got almost 33,000 customers sitting out there. So, and some people will call first about their TV being out before they would the power, so we get a kick out of that when, my TV's out, well, you don't have any power either. So, it's pretty interesting sometimes. But as I said, on the succession plan, right now what we're dealing with, we have a lot of people eligible to retire. The oldest group we have down there is in the electric side of the department. The other groups are very young, and we have to make it a priority to try to get these folks replaced. It's not easy to replace somebody because you got a lot of knowledge, because most of these folks on the electric side has been working there 35 to 40 years. And that's a lot of knowledge these folks have, and you just can't go out and replace a body with a body. You got to have some knowledge, some expertise, those kinds of things. Dana's moving up into the engineering department as well. We have a lot of people that swapping positions, but we got like almost 8 to 10 people that can retire in the next 5 years on the electric side. So like I said, that's a lot of it's in operations. Some of it's in engineering. Some of them's linemen, working foremen on the lineman side, those kinds of things. So it's very, very critical, and we're trying to be sure that we got it all worked out, because good help is hard to find these days. I don't know if any of you have experienced it, but you cannot find dependable good help. I'll put it that way. Back when I applied at it was the electric system then, I was just proud to have a job, and, then was able to work my way up, because when I first started, I was picking up trash and cutting grass, so that's where I started down there. And then I went to the line crew and was a journeyman lineman for about 23 years. Well, I wanted to advance a little more, so I was given an opportunity to build substations. So we built 7 substations. That was my project. Then my next project was going telecommunications. So I was the leader of going into telecommunications. So, it's the experience that you have because you're familiar with every department. And that's where our line crews are. They're familiar with every department. They're more educated in their training, because we work on 46,000 volts, we work on 14,000 volts, and we work on 7,000 volts. And a lot of you don't experience an outage because we do it all hot. So you're up there with your rubber gloves on doing that work. Same thing on the gas. If we get ready to tap, the gas is actually flowing through the gas lines, and same thing with water and wastewater. They're out there tapping, and you have that inside those pipes. So it's very, very important. And so with the succession plan, we come out and we say, well, we're going to do a strategic plan. So with the strategic plan, we come out and we're out 3 years about what's going to happen, where we're going to go with the system in all departments, and how we're going to upgrade the system to be able to provide better services. Like I know in the next 3 years, maybe 2 years, you'll see us on the Huntsville Highway, because we're going to replace all of that infrastructure up through there on the power side. All that's on the left side going south, all of it's going to be replaced. New poles, new line, because we've outgrown the system, which that's what you want. You want growth, right? So we got to keep up the infrastructure to keep increasing the conductor size so we can handle the load that comes in there. And that infrastructure's been there ever since I've been there, or longer, and I've been there for going on 43 years. So that tells you how old it is. So So a lot of replacement to do on all services, but we got a lot to do strategically, and we have it laid out. We got a 4 to 5 year work plan that we're working on right now, so we'll be out, into the future. We try to stay way ahead of how we plan at the Fayetteville Public Utilities, because if you lack something, because Donna tell you, we're here today, but we're not as good as we need to be by tomorrow. So it changes every day. We got to get better every day on offering our services, because we do offer a lot of services. We are very, very involved in the community. We donate a lot in the community. If it comes to kids, it's my number one thing. I think we should do anything we can for the kids in Fayetteville, Lincoln County, and that's my goal. If they got something they got to do, if it's a school within reason, we try to sponsor everything that the kids' functions are. So, because that's what our future is this younger generation. Got to train them, got to teach them. We got a co-op. Some of the students that's on our student utility board that we have that's set up like our FPU board, they come in, we show them all the aspects of Fayetteville Public Utilities. Some of them ask, well, do you have summer help? If they can work through the summer, spring break, Christmas breaks, those kinds of things, you daggum right, because that's what I tell them. If you want to come in here and work on break time, you come in here, because your future could be here at FPU, right? But now, that's what we need. We need students that want to work. Everybody's not made to go to college. I did not go to college. I came out of work for about 10 years, and I went back to school and got my degree in electronics engineering. But at the same time, if you don't keep up with new technology, you're way behind, because that's what it's all about. Everything we have now is electronics. All of our relays at trip substations, all electronics. Cable, internet, voice over IP, it's all electronics. Gas, we have a SCADA system, it's all electronics. Water and wastewater, if you ever have a chance to stop by the water plant out there, look at the new technology we have out there. It's all on SCADA control. You can monitor all the lift stations, pump stations electronically through our SCADA system. Same thing on the electric side. Everything that we have in our infrastructure out there comes into our office, and we can sit there and watch a substation, and if it's breaker trips are here in the sub, we can tell you actually what it feeds and all those kinds of things. So it's all new technology in everything we do. Same thing as far as paying bills. We're trying to prepare. We had a meeting last week about the coronavirus. I had to be sure we have a contingency plan in place to be able to handle this, because, you could have folks that's going to have jobs, could be sent home, don't know if they're going to get paid. A lot of them do get paid, some of them don't get paid. So we got to set up something that we're going to be able to work with those customers until they can pay their bills. And that's what we're all about. We're going to help out every customer we can to make sure that happens. We have where we might have to close down everything where no customers can come inside, but what we would have to do is we'd have to open up only the drive-through. So we hope it don't get to that, but if it does come to that, that's what we have to do. But then our other plans are that, how we meet and greet people. We called off our meetings in our meeting room down there that's open up to the public. Matter of fact, we had an EMA meeting that was supposed to be there this week. I canceled that this morning. It's not only the exposure of the people to the outside, but I have to be very concerned about the people on the inside that I work with. Very, very, very important, because without those folks, we cannot work. We have to work. So we have to do everything we can to put in place to be sure. We're spraying everything, we're wiping everything, we're doing all those kinds of things to try to keep down any possibility of the coronavirus coming in the building. But you don't never know. So we're taking all precautions to do that. And with that, you can get information on the website. We have a nice web page that we redone now on our web. You can also get information on the iPhone if you have iPhones. We have Smart Hub that if you call into the office or if you came by the office, we can show you how to set that up on your iPhones. It'll tell you your bill. It'll tell you when it's due. You can make a payment from it. You can make a payment over the phone, credit cards, those kinds of things. But we've put all these things in place to make it more convenient for the customer. You don't hardly go anywhere now. You got some folks don't take cash, don't take check. You got to slide the card. You got your chips, all those kinds of things, and that's the same thing that we offer. We are looking at going into kiosks of how you can make a payment as well, and we hope to have one set up in the lobby sometime by the end of next year. And we're also PCI compliance, and what that means, we don't touch your information. If you make a payment, we don't do anything with your card. We don't sit up there and key in your card number, all those kinds of things, because we're PCI compliant. That way you don't have to worry about us or anybody that gets into our system of getting your information. So that's very, very important to us for our billing parts of what we provide down there. So we try to be very secure. And the last thing I'd like to talk about, just in case if you don't know, we have what we call a red flag policy. And with a red flag policy, what that means is if you're the only one on your utility bill, like if it's written down on my utility bill, and I got a problem at home, or if I got a high bill complaint or anything like that, if my wife calls in and she's not on that bill with her name, FPU will not talk to her. And the reason being is because it's for your protection, because we have people that comes in and they want to talk about your bill and they don't have nothing to do with your bill. So if their name's not on the bill, your identification, we're not going to talk to that customer. We cannot give that information up, so we don't even take the chance. So if you're married, or if you have a daughter, or if you have a son that tries to help look after, anybody, be sure that their name is on your account, because, if you're out of town, something happens, and if we got to talk to somebody, if their name's not on that account, we will not be able to talk to them. And that's been in effect for several years now. But we have a lot of customers that don't understand that, because we have had it to happen where customers call in, well, I want to look and see what so-and-so's bill is, all these kinds of things. And so we had to get away from all that. It's like some of these scams, that goes on. They'll call up and say, well, I'm so-and-so, I need to do this, I need to do that. But we cannot give out your information off of any account to anybody out there unless their name is on your bill. Their name's got to be on your bill for us to do that. Okay? Very, very, very important. Because sometimes, health-wise, accident-wise, all those kinds of things, and we experience it every day. We cannot talk to you. Or you got a high bill, something's wrong with your house, you want us to come out and check it. Well, what's your name? What's the name that it counts on the bill? So we have to look up the information. We get you to identify yourself before we can respond with anything. So that's for your protection, is the reason that the red flag policy is in place, to protect you as a customer, that you always hear about these people with identity theft, those kinds of things. And if you come in the lobby, the way that we used to be set up, we had cubicles out in the lobby. Well, when we get safety inspected, for everything that we do, we have a safety inspector. We have a third party that comes in and inspects, and then we have our own internal safety inspection. But we got deemed from the third party that's outside that comes in and says, you don't need to have people out there in the cubicle, because the next one over there in the cubicle can hear what you're talking to this person about, their information. So we had to do away with all the cubicles, and that's the reason why now you come in, we got CSRs in their own offices. We have the cashiers in there that we had to put up the bulletproof glass and all those kinds of things. Same thing up in the engineering side. We had to put up bulletproof glass because, you keep up with the news, all these things that happens, and so you had to be prepared, and we were made and asked to put all that in place. So that's what we had to do to protect, again, our employees of, they're very, very important to FPU to protect them. So, again, if you got something on your accounts, if you want to change that information, I am asking you, please do that, because we will not be able to talk to anybody else if their name's not on that account. Okay?
So how would you go, can you call and add, or do you have to come in? And
You can call and add.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Call and add. Any questions? Yes, ma'am?
The green poles and tires like a Pleasant Road, what does that mean to the water?
The what now?
There's a green pole at Pleasant Grove Road and Hustle Highway, and somebody said it was pertaining to the water.
Has it got a little box on it?
Yeah, up.
Yes, ma'am. That belongs to the county. That's how they communicate with their water meters.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. They communicate by daisy chain. What I say by daisy chain, they'd go up and hit one antenna, then they'd bounce and hit another antenna. The same thing we do on the electric side with fiber. or if there's a transformer in another meter, that's how they communicate from one another. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
They used to have tax incentives. It might have been through the federal government. Is any of them in effect now?
Dana can comment. She does the tax incentives, churches and those kinds of things.
Tax exemptions.
Well, like you do insulation, or you do anything to improve new roofs, stuff like that.
Okay, not that I'm aware of, I don't, now TVA at one time had some rebates that they did through this program, but most of those are gone unless you fuel switch, like if you had wood burning stove and you decided to switch over to electric, then there's a rebate for that. I think the only other is, sorry.
Can't hear, sorry.
So we do have, TVA does have some rebates. They have changed them and modified them in the last few years, but, so like if you do a fuel switch from wood burning stove or wood fuel or over to electric heating and cooling, then there would be a rebate for that. They also have water heaters. If you switch from gas over to electric water heater, there would be a rebate for that. There may be a few others, but there's not a whole lot of rebates on the TVA energy efficiency right now. But what we were talking about, tax incentives, if you're with a church or an organization that's a nonprofit and you have a tax exempt card, you can make sure FPU has a copy of that and you can have a tax exemption on that, as well as agriculture tax exemptions. We do take those as well for the barns and grain bins and such as that.
Yes, ma'am.
Excuse me. My first question is, if I got a house and I'm not living in it, but I still have all of my services there, and you go away and work on the gas, and you can't cut the gas back on until I okay it because you can't get on the inside to know that, you know, what it's doing on the inside, and you put me a notice in the door, should you not have mailed that to my address where I'm residing now, so I will know that you've been there? Cause putting it in the door, the wind or anything could have blown it out.
Yes, ma'am, you are correct, and the reason we don't do that is because we don't know who are living there, and there could be somebody living there that we hope that would see the notice, you know, before it got blown away or something. So if they would call, or if you would call saying that you know you got problems over there, but we cannot afford to go in and go ahead and cut the gas on with nobody not being there, because it could be an open valve or something like that on the inside somewhere, and that would be a bad situation.
What I am saying, I didn't know that you had gotten a call. If I didn't know that you'd gotten a call, it was a problem in that area, I wouldn't know anything about you cutting it off.
Is your name on that account and all services?
Would your name be on there? Yes.
For all services, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's why, to me, my last location, you should put my notification there. And then I would know you've been over there.
We can probably give you a call, but we can't run all over town, no ma'am.
You wouldn't have to run. All you'd have to do is pick it up, just call and say,
That's what they can do.
we've
They
been
can,
over there.
they
But
can,
now, a lot of people got houses, they not gonna check their houses every day in the week. You know what I'm saying? You might not go away every day.
right. But they can give you a call if they got, if your name is on all services. Kim, you all put a name on their account and set that up for, be sure to call. Good phone number.
The phone number didn't change from the original, when I left. It's been the same at the other places it was at.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanna know, because that is, very dangerous. Then, had you cut it off, I would've had to double it up and pay for cut-off fees and all that, and for you to connect it back.
Well, it depends on what it was cut off for. If it was cut off because of a problem, you don't have a connect fee. And if it was cut off for non-pay, there is a connect fee. But if it's a problem inside, the house, you don't pay for a connect fee.
Well, I want to get that straight, because, I'm sure somebody else probably had the same problem. And to me, I can't fix something that I don't know about.
Right.
And my next question is, it might not make sense to nobody else, but it does me. If I, just say Miss Gray is out of town, and she forgot to pay her light bill. She said, Shirley, my light bill is gonna run out such and such time, will you go down there and pay it? Is it okay for me to come and say, Miss Gray, light bill is due and I wanna pay it? My name ain't on her account, but I want to pay it for her to keep from having to pay the other.
Yes, ma'am. If you come down there and say you want to pay Miss Gray's bill and you ask how much it is, you will not know. We will tell you how much you need to pay, but if you asked how much her bill is, we're not going to tell you.
I ain't gonna ask you how much, she said pay it, and I'm gonna try to pay it.
But that's how we got to handle that situation. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanna make sure, cause sometimes people are out of town, and when they get on their way where they going, they think, oh God, I didn't do this, I didn't do that, and I just wanna know.
You know, and another option of payment is bank draft too. You know, so and that's what a lot of folks are signing up for now is just bank draft. And you don't ever have to worry about it.
Everybody may like it, but I don't.
That's just where we have to change sometimes. Any other questions?
The dollar or something that you add on your bill for needy people, how's that, have you got a pretty good balance of that? Do you help a lot of people with that?
Sometimes we do. A lot of people quit giving to the project helps, what we call it, and then Hands of Mercy and those kind of folks, they find out how much, and then we don't make the decision where that goes to help, and so they all handle it from the third party side, but it's not like what it used to be, you know. So, but we have people that give a lot more than what they used to. They'll just come down there and give a donation or something sometimes. And we are raising money for the Relay for Life and Heart Walk, those kinds of things, because we got ribeye sandwiches on sale right now. What's the date that they serve? March 27th. March 27th, we'll be cooking ribeye sandwiches for the community to raise money for charity. So if you want a sandwich or tickets, $6 a piece, I think. And if you're interested in that, if you call the office, come by the office, and we'll be glad to sell you a ticket.
You all are commended for the help you do in projects and things.
Thank you very much. Any more questions? But please do, if you need another name added to that account, is very, very, very important if you elect to do that. Very, very important. Thank you very much.
And we also just want to make sure that we tell Britt and all of the folks from Fayetteville Public Utilities how much we do appreciate everything that they do for our community. They go above and beyond to take care of us, and we thank them for partnering with us today. So I'm going to let Britt draw our first door prize, which will be a $50 Visa card. All right. Lloyd McClaskey. All right, very good, Mr. Lloyd. Thank you, thank you. Very good. Thank you. You're welcome. All right, we are going to give them time if they want. Do you want to break down now or leave it? Or
We can. Don't
okay,
matter.
whatever's good for y'all.
Them to fill out those 2 forms.
The forms. So we can give you a package here.
And we'll
Okay.
come and bring it to you.
Okay, if you have not filled out your form, they do have packets they're going to hand out, so we're going to give them a few minutes to do that. That's going to give you opportunity, if you wish, to use the restroom, which are to my right and your left, if you want to take a quick break. Then we're going to get started back up. Miss Mary Ann Christian is going to be our next speaker, so take a minute and fill those out, and then you'll be able to get your packet here from FPU. Mary Ann Christian. And unfortunately, in our society today, along with all of the other things that are scary to us, there is an uptick in suicide. And we've seen it so much in our community. And she is a representative that gives a lot of good information, signs that you might look for. If you have a young person or an older person, it discriminates with no age. So we are going to let Mary Ann talk to us a little bit this morning, and I know that she will bring you some wonderful information. Good morning.
Thank you, Ms. Hope. Thank you for having me, and thank you for allowing me to come into this wonderful facility. This is a very nice place, and and all your faces make me smile. But I've just looked around, and there's just a lot of things that make me smile in here today. So I'm glad that there is a wonderful resource. So I am Mary Ann Christian. I'm the South Central Regional Director for the Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network. So I serve Lincoln County as well as 12 other counties in the Grand Mid Southern region of Tennessee. Just a little background about myself. I was in education for 15 years before I took this position. I started out teaching kindergarten. So I had at that time, I had 4, 5, and 6-year-olds, just depending on where the birthday fell. And then I stepped up into some administrative positions, serving as assistant principal at several schools. And then I finished my education career as a principal at a private school. And I let you know that to let you know where I come from and to let you know that for 15 years, I had mental health issues as a very common problem, but predominantly suicide. So even with, I have seen 6-year-olds have to be put into some inpatient facilities for a time being. In fact, at one school, within a month and a half, we had 2 students that had to go. One was 6 and one was in 3rd grade. And as she said, suicide does not discriminate. It affects all age groups. So I want us to think for just a minute, what if there was a plane crash every single day? What would happen? People would what? Say it again. They would be a little more cautious about riding with planes, wouldn't they? There would be investigations. Everybody would want to know how it happened, who was responsible, what actually happened, and how can we make sure that this doesn't happen again? It would definitely be all over the news, such as the coronavirus is right now, right? Well, according to the Bureau of Aircraft Accidents Archives, in 2014, there were 122 airplane incidents, resulting in 1,328 deaths. 2015, 123 incidents with 898 deaths. In 2016, 102 incidents with 629 deaths. So you see what happens when investigating starts coming into play. They start going down. In 2017, there were 101 incidents, resulting in 399 deaths. But the reality is, we lose hundreds of people a day to suicide. It's a topic we don't want to talk about. It's a topic that's not widely investigated and thrown all over the news, such as airplane incidents. In fact, in 2017, we lost 129 people per day in this country to suicide. Let's talk about Tennessee for just a second, because we live in Tennessee and we kind of want to know about what's going on in our state, right? Well, in 2017, we had 500 deaths associated with fentanyl, the drug, 556 homicides, 644 deaths associated with opiates, 1,084 deaths associated with motor vehicle fatalities. But we had 1,166 deaths by suicide. So we have a prominent cause of death that is preventable that we're not talking about, that we're not working to prevent. So that's why I'm here today. That's why I'm in this position, because I know that there's a need. It is the 10th leading cause of death overall for the United States, but it's the 9th leading cause of death in Tennessee. Tennessee, for the last several years, has been way above our United States, our national average. Excuse me. So at TSBN, Tennessee Suicide Prevention Network, we do three different things. We work on prevention, we work on intervention, and we work on postvention. So part of the prevention strategies we do is suicide prevention trainings, suicide prevention awareness, and all kinds of different outreach, because that's so very important to bring that topic up, to start having those discussions, letting people know what it is and what we can do about it. We are a public and private partnership. We have lots of people that work with us who are survivors, who are attempt survivors, mental health, public health, suicide prevention groups, clergy, journalists, Department of Health, Department of Education, lots of the TBI, Tennessee Commission on Aging and Disability, Tennessee Commission on Children and Youth. We all work together to try to combat this issue that we're all facing together. We have an advisory council that's appointed by the governor. They review and evaluate all of our activities that we do. We do a lot of advocacy work. And we do preside over the entire state. We have 9 regions in our state, South Central being one of them. Our mission is to prevent suicide attempts and death. That is our mission. We also want to lead the state in suicide prevention activities. We provide an organizational framework for connecting regarding suicide prevention. We facilitate a lot of community awareness about suicide. We also elevate the voice of lived experience. We do work on reducing the stigma of suicide. The stigma is a huge barrier that we all face in trying to have that conversation. We provide education about suicide prevention and preparedness to act. And we also facilitate a lot of suicide attempt survivor and loss survivor connectedness and support groups, because it's very important if you have a loved one that you have lost by suicide to be supported. That grieving process is tough and you need the support. But I'm here with a wonderful group, with a wonderful population that's often not talked about, even more so than the other age groups when we talk about suicide, and that is our aging population. Our aging population is continuing to grow every day, especially as our baby boomers get into retirement. So let's talk about all of you for just a minute. Let's give some information for you, because I know that there are plenty of people that you know in Lincoln County that are in your same age group, your friends, your family members. So I gave you a little bit of an overview of the stats for the nation. Well, let me give you some stats specific to your population. Because in 2017, across the nation, we lost 8,568 people to death by suicide in the age group of 65 and older. That was 18.2% of all the people that died by suicide, which was 47,173. In 2018, that number rose. That number rose to 9,102 people out of the 48,344 people who died by suicide. 18.8%. That's heartbreaking to me, especially as I look out at this room, because any one of you could be my grandparent or my great aunts or my uncles. And that's just heartbreaking because you have lived such wonderful lives. You have so much experience. You make such a difference with your family and your friends due to all that you've lived in life. In 2018 also, in the age group of 85 and up, regardless of the gender, they were the second highest age group to die by suicide at about 21%. That's really scary to me. We also know that when seniors attempt suicide, that they die more often. There is a lot that encompasses that, and part of it is, as you age, your health is not as strong as it once was. So any self-harm is more likely to end in suicide. We also know with that 1 out of 4 seniors die compared to 1 out of 200 in our youth who attempt. So again, some very scary statistics, and I'm not here to scare you, I'm here to educate you. Because I talked about the baby boomers. Well, there are about 75.4 million baby boomers. So if we keep on our current path of losing 18, almost 19% of our seniors, then we will start losing around 11,000 lives plus a year to death by suicide. I'm trying to keep this short too because I know lunch is going to be ready. We know that, again, back to the baby boomers, you are the fastest growing age population. We also know that a third live alone, or they are living with, or they're living near family. We also know that chronic illness are continuing to climb as you age. In fact, it's about 46% for those that are older than 65, whereas it's only about 12% for those who are younger than 65. We know that elderly white men are most at risk for death by suicide. And some people want to know why men. Well, I wish I could give you an answer. I wish I could give you an answer for exactly why someone will die by suicide, but it's complicated and every one of us are different. But we do know that men are a little more rigid and they're grown up to be tough. We don't show emotion. We don't even sometimes express emotion. We don't let people know when we're hurting, whether that hurt is financially or with our health. Sometimes showing that emotion means that they're weak. And men, you're supposed to be strong, right? Because you're men. You're our protectors. You're our leaders. You're the ones we look to. And that sometimes stops men from seeking help or voicing that they're lonely, or maybe sometimes voicing that they might be depressed. Depression is the #1 risk factor for all age groups to die by suicide, especially undiagnosed depression. Some other risk factors could be sleep problems. Who in the room gets a wonderful, full 8 hours of sleep? I am so proud. Look, she quickly rose her hand. I can't even raise my hand on that. I had one person in this room. Sleep problems are hard because when you're not sleeping, that affects every system in your body. And it most definitely affects your brain. You're not able to think clearly when you aren't sleeping well. And sometimes you have more headaches because you're not sleeping well. So sleep problems is a risk factor, especially for our aging population. Hopelessness. Hopelessness is the number one commonality that anyone who dies by suicide has. And that's through all age groups as well. Sometimes limited social support. I just heard them announce this morning that they're going to close the senior citizen. Who in this room comes to the senior citizen every day? Let's say 3 days a week. 3 days a week. Okay, there we go. There we go. So you're losing some of that social support right there. We need to find ways to help support you during this time. You need that connection to others. We all need that connection to others. As humans, we are wired to connect. So we're going to have to be creative and figure out ways to check on each other. Some more risk factors, major life changes. Well, this is going to be a major life change for all of us right now in the next few weeks, right? Someone who's putting their affairs in order, stockpiling medication, or obtaining lethal means, limited financial resources. And we know that our aging population, a lot of times we struggle with our financial resources. Very, very real. Physical ailments. Physical ailments are pain, and if you're not in pain, if you are in pain and not able to get around, then that's difficult. Loss of interest. Loss of interest in anything, an activity that you usually found enjoyable. Loss of interest in coming to the senior citizen when it's open. Loss of interest in taking care of your personal hygiene. Taking a shower. Brushing your teeth. Eating. Experiencing significant personal loss. It's very difficult when we're struggling and then we lose somebody who's close to us. And we've got the psychosocial, loneliness, isolation, financial, hoarding, cognitive decline, dementia, all of those put together. And then, of course, substance abuse. Those are several risk factors. There's many, many more. As I said, suicide is a complicated issue. It's not just cut and dry. I wish it was. So if it were, I'd know exactly how to fix it, but it's different for everyone because we're all different. We're all different, and we experience things differently. We know that I mentioned depression. A lot of depression goes undiagnosed for every age group, but especially in our aging population, it seems to go undiagnosed. A lot of times when you go to your healthcare provider and you start sharing some of the things that you're thinking or feeling or experiencing, sometimes they will put that, they and family will say, well, it's just because they're getting older. They're supposed to experience that. Or, well, they just lost their friend, so they're supposed to be sad right now. But what's very important to know that you're not supposed to feel any certain way. Don't stop expressing how you feel. And if you see a friend, a loved one, who you think or who you see is feeling a little different than normal, check in on them. Go have a conversation. Even if it's through a window, go have a conversation. Text them, call them, whatever your mode is. Send them a card in the mail. I know my generation doesn't send cards as much, but yours does. Send those cards. They mean so much to have that connection, even if it is through a card. We know that the 3 most important risk factors for adults are depression, substance abuse, and social isolation. So let me talk about depression in a little bit more detail. And that's the persistent sadness, the persistent feeling of emptiness, the persistent feeling of anxiety. You're hopeless. You have a pessimistic attitude, guilt, feelings of helplessness or worthlessness, irritable, And I say irritable, and already saw a few eyes. I know some people are just always irritable. We can't change that. But if it's a change, and they're not able to get over that at any point. Fatigue, trouble with memory or concentrating, changes in sleep, changes in appetite, thoughts of death, or even expressing death. And pain are symptoms that can't be explained by medical condition. Those all persistently can cause someone to become depressed. It's not a normal way of aging. We definitely need to make sure that we are checking on people, and that if we're feeling that, express it. Let somebody know, because somebody's there to help. Depression is also associated with longer hospital stays, especially for our aging population, increased emergency department visits for suicide-related issues, increased likelihood of rehab needs, inpatient death, and without treatment, depression can and does get worse over time and can end tragically. So early detection and continuous treatment is so vital, so vital. Depression is rarely the sole reason that someone dies by suicide, because no one dies for just one reason. It's always a ton of different reasons put together. But we do know that when somebody is depressed and they're not seeking medical help for it, that they tend to self-medicate. So what are some ways that you think people self-medicate? Doesn't matter the age group. How would people self-medicate when they're depressed? Alcohol, exactly. Give me some other ways. Over the counter, most definitely. Anything else you can think of? Those are the two prominent. They're going to use something over the counter, or they're going to use alcohol. So that, again, that's across all age groups. But when you go back to our aging population, what is something that alcohol does, or over-the-counter prescriptions does, or can interact with something that you're already doing in your life?
Medication that's prescribed by the doctor.
Medication prescribed by the doctor. We know that people 65 and older on average, have about 2 doctors that they see regularly, with a minimum of 2 medications that they take regularly. And we don't know the interactions of the substance that they're self-medicating with, and how that's going to affect the medication they're already taking. So substance misuse comes into play greatly. We know that also the medications that older adults are taking, that sometimes they are not taking them correctly. And sometimes that's intentional, sometimes it's not intentional. I know just with my own father sometimes, if he doesn't have his pills fixed in his pill box for the week, he can't tell you what he's taken and what he hadn't taken. And he's still a very sharp young man. So that can be intentional or unintentional, and it affects not only their health, but it affects anything else that they try to counteract with that. Let's see here. I'm sorry, I'm trying to skip around to not be as long. But we also know that there are some protective factors. And protective factors are exactly what they mean. They help protect you. They help protect me from making a choice to end my life. And those protective factors are very, very important. And they are different for everybody. For me, my huge protective factor is my family. I have a big family. I have 5 children of my own. I have a brother. I have nieces and nephews. I have a great nephew. I have my parents. They are a huge protective factor for me. Not everybody has family as a protective factor, because 1, you may not have family here, or 2, you just may not like your family. Happens Look, she's laughing. We can laugh, and I do try to laugh because I do have a heavy topic. But so I appreciate any laughs. Don't be afraid to laugh. It's not going to hurt my feeling. I'm generally an upbeat person, and I try to make my presentations as upbeat as possible. Given the heavy topic, it's not easy. But sometimes we don't like our family, right? So that may not be a protective factor for you. But we do have other protective factors. It could be friends. It could be that we know how to cope ourselves, that we have very strong coping strategies. Kids these days, they don't have coping strategies. Just so you know that. They don't know how to handle when things don't go their way for lots of various reasons. Most of the older adults, because we have lived and we've experienced and we know that life kind of goes like this, we know that when we're down, it's going to come back up. We can get through things. So some of us have better coping strategies than others. Resiliency. Resiliency is something that I definitely think of when I think of anybody who is 65 and older, because I know the life that you've lived. I know what you've been through in your lifetime. I didn't experience it, but I've heard it over and over, and I love it. I love hearing the stories. I loved when my grandmother would tell me when my grandfather was in the Army, and she was so fearful for just the staple items, sugar and flour. I loved hearing how she got creative to get through that. You have so much resiliency. It is amazing to me. Some of your other reasons for living are going to be very personal to you, as to some of my reasons for my own self. But we also have community. Obviously you love your community or you wouldn't be here today. So you have community resources and reasons for living. We also have community resources that help us. I was so glad to hear that your transportation, they're still going to have that. So you're going to be able to get back and forth to the doctor if you need to, or to wherever you need to go, that there's that transportation piece that is there. That's so crucial, especially in our rural areas. Transportation is always an issue. So protective factors can be personal. Protective factors are personal, but there are also some commonalities in all of those protective factors, and we love that we have those. So some myths and some facts real quick. People will say that there's nothing you can do to help somebody who's suicidal, and that's completely untrue. There's always something that you can do. You can always intervene. You can always check on people. You can always have a conversation with them. Let people know that you care about them. We do often find that we are isolated and we feel like there is nothing that anybody can do to help us. Just that sometimes that one person reaching out and saying, hey, I care about you. Hey, I'm here for you. It can truly make all the difference to that one person. Some people think that discussing suicide actually implants that in somebody's mind. That's not true. That's not true at all. Our minds don't work that way. Because if I told you right now that we're going to have a conversation about everybody in this room handing me a $5 bill as I leave the door, who all's going to give me that $5 bill? Now remember, I work for a nonprofit. I took a huge pay cut coming from education, and I told you I got 5 kids. So now who's going to give me that $5 bill? We just talked about it. Our minds just don't work that way. So that's not true, that you just because you talk about it implants it. Completely untrue. And some people think that if they encounter someone who has attempted suicide or is thinking about attempting suicide, that once they've got past that moment, that it's over and done. And that's not true either. They're still at risk. They've survived that moment, but they need help and they need resources to keep them alive. we also know that there are a lot of things working. And I know I've said it several times throughout this presentation, and that's talking about it, communicating, checking on people. There is a huge stigma with suicide. Nobody wants to talk about it. It's not a comfortable conversation to have. And in fact, in a lot of our communities, it's called as the no casserole death. Does anybody have any idea why it's called the no casserole death?
They're afraid to go to the family.
You're afraid to go with the families. What did you say, ma'am?
It's a mixture of things happening.
It is so true. And what happens right now when we lose a loved one? What happens? What does the community do? They rally around you and they bring food and they check on you and they make sure you've got everything you need. But when we have somebody to die by suicide, so often that doesn't happen. And I know that a lot of people will say, I don't know what to say. That's a very common thing because you don't know what to say. But guess what? That family still needs your support. They most likely can't process what's going on either. But they do know that they don't need to be isolated from the community because they've lost a loved one to suicide. Human contact, connection, so very important. Medical and psychiatric help, again, very important. Communicate. If you're having thoughts or feelings, communicate with friends, communicate with your doctor. It's not a bad thing. Mental health, who knows or who can give me a definition of mental health? Anybody have an idea? I'm going to show you. It's everything. It's everything. It's our entire body. If our mind is not healthy, if we're not having good thoughts going through our mind, it affects every single part of our body. So it's so vitally important to keep our mental health up and well. Exercise helps. Because exercise, well, it's just good for every part of our body. But the more blood flow we get, the more positive hormones we get going through our body, it helps our mind and it helps our body. So our physical well-being helps. Regular visits to our doctors. Hydration. So many people do not drink enough water. And I'm so glad that they passed out water today. So you've got a good start. You got your at least 12 ounces in for the day if you drink this. But make sure you keep hydrated and make sure that we're raising awareness for suicide prevention because it is preventable and that's vitally important. So what can you do? Well, you can keep that conversation going. We have regional meetings. We actually have the Lincoln County Suicide Prevention Network here in Lincoln County. We meet, we've been meeting about every other month. We've been doing a lot of different QPR trainings, which we will be putting on hold for a little bit for the safety of everybody. But reach out to them because you can get a lot of information and you can find out ways to help others. Spreading the word is so vitally important. Speaking up saves lives, so don't ever hesitate to speak up. And make sure you're checking on each other and your neighbors. We all need somebody to check up on us every once in a while. Even the ones that have a house full of kids, sometimes maybe a little bit more. No. My kids are good most of the time. Any questions? They're kids, you know. Any questions? Okay. Well, again, I can't express my appreciation for being here. I can't express my appreciation for all of you being here. You have the Saving Older Adult Lives brochure that has some information in it. You also have the key tag. The key tag is the crisis line. The crisis line, you can call or text. So if you do have a young person that you may need to give that to, they can text. They don't realize that you can put the phone up to your ear and your mouth and actually talk on it, so they like to text. But it's free, it's anonymous, and it's not just for someone who's having a suicidal crisis. It is for any crisis. So let me repeat that. It's for any crisis. It doesn't have to be suicidal. That's so vitally important because that's a resource that you all have now for yourselves or for someone that you know. So with that, if you don't have any questions, yes.
I know you can't answer this, but in this area, the response of suicide for teenagers, is anything being done to try to prevent that?
Yes, I can respond to that. And so some of the things that are being done, well, first of all, the youth themselves at Coffee County High School, no, Lincoln County, sorry, I was in the wrong county. Lincoln County High School, right? That's the one that's down over close to Walmart?
Yeah.
Okay, just make sure I've got the right high school correct. So the youth themselves created the LIFT LC, which stands for Living in Friendship and Togetherness, Lincoln County. So what they've done with the help of adults, they have a kind of a presentation that they have presented to every student at Lincoln County High School. They started that last year and continued it this year. They're branching out into some of the other high schools. You also have the Lincoln County Suicide Prevention Network that some of those youth serve in that, in that group. And we're trying to get trainings out because, again, training and education are the key vital points in preventing it. So those are two major things that we are trying to do. Every school in the county, all the faculty and staff receive suicide prevention training every year. That is legislation that was passed many, many years through the state of Tennessee. And some of them, I know that I've been in Lincoln County to do school counselors and PE teachers. So they're trying to do some in-person training as well to give them some more skills. We give them brochures, we give them key tags, we give them, there's a bracelet that has the hotline, the crisis line on it as well. So we're trying. I know several different churches are working with youth groups trying to get trainings to them as well because they are. Lincoln County is the second highest county in the state of Tennessee for rate of death by suicide. And so the youth is, I can't remember where the youth is, that's just the county in general. So we are trying to get those that training and that education out. So if anybody in here, maybe not for the next 8 weeks, but if anybody in here, has a youth group or a church where you would like a training, let me know. Let me know. I'll be more than happy to bring it. Because the more we educate our youth and our adults, the youth training is different, but the more we educate our adults especially to be able to recognize warning signs, to know some risk factors, then the more likely we are to save lives. And every life counts. One life lost is one life too many. Every life counts. Every life has value. So good question. Thank you.
Ma'am, did you hear about the woman that was always positive? She walked up to this man and said, "You look like my third husband." You're talking to me? He said, she said, "Yes." "I look like your third husband?" "Yes." "How many of you had?" She said, "2."
Thank you so much. You got to stay positive. I wasn't sure where you were going with that. Thank you so much. And you do. You do. No. And we need to laugh. And we need to have moments to laugh. Laughing's good for our body. So thank you so much. Love that. Thank you. Thank you all.
I'm going to let Mary Ann draw for our next door prize. All right. Margie Graham.
Hey, Mark.
Okay, very good.
And ironically, I went and held the door open for her.
An act of kindness.
Yeah, well, and I drew her name.
That's right.
Didn't know
Very
it.
good.
Thank you.
Mary Ann, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are going to go and take a break now. We are going to have you go through and get your lunch. While you have your lunch, Carol Foster with Higgins Funeral Home is going to be sharing some helpful information with you. And while you're eating lunch, we're also going to give away our rocking chair. So we've got some fine folks that are from Higgins that are going to help us in distributing our lunch. And of course, everybody knows our good friend James Strope. James Strope is going to be offering our blessing for lunch today. So he's going to take care of that. Then if y'all will come to the back, we'll be happy to give your lunch. Your lunch is prepared in box lunches. Everything is individually wrapped, so you won't have to touch anything other than the items that you're picking up for your own lunch. And again, we're so glad you're here. James?
I'm so glad to be here. It's just, at my age, I'm kind of glad to be most anywhere. Cards and letters go to Ennis Hyman over here. If you'd like to joke, okay. We have a young man that's usually with us when we're here. He came down with a real bad UTI infection. He's in ICU. He's doing okay, but they're going to keep him a couple of more days. Mr. Lynn Moore, y'all know him. He liked the fruited tea out Rick's the other day, and he drank too much, I think. But we've had some really good information this morning. What Brett tied in, I can't add to. But what was said here about suicide, I can. There's hardly a family, I'd say, here that hadn't been affected in some way or another. I know I have. I've had family and I've had friends. I've had folks that I've known for a long time. It's a sad part of life. And true, if we just have a family member die, or if you want to get to pass away, we do gather around them and watch over them and help them. But I've experienced that if we have a suicide in a family, it's always been kind of a tainted thing, that we don't rally around like we should. That sometimes families are left alone. Or we come around for a day or two and then we're gone. But when you have something like that happen in your family, it don't just go away. It stays with you. And folks like me and you are the answer. We can't give them stuff. We can't even say the right words. But if it wasn't for coronavirus, we could hug them and love on them. And a couple of things here about what Christ said. He was asked about what was the greatest commandments, or the great commandments. He said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. And he said the second one is to love your neighbor as yourself. Loving your neighbor. And we're all neighbors. I had a guy that every time that was said, he'd say, who's my neighbor? We're all neighbors. We're all neighbors. All right, having said that, we're going to have lunch. I'm going to say a word of prayer. Father, we thank you so much for just the love that you show us, the blessings you give us, and the family and friends that you put around us to love us and lift us up and take care of us. Father, I know that as with age comes a lot of things. you have set really a time limit in your word of where age ends. And Father, we're so thankful for the time that you allow us over that age. I know you've told us that would be a blessing, and we thank you for that. But Father, there's so many of us that are suffering with a lot of things in this life today, whether it be financial, spiritual, physical, and emotional. Father, we thank you that we can gather around it and we can be a part of the answer. And I pray, Father, that we, as your children, stand up, be accounted for in the way life is, and the way friends hurt, and the way that we live our lives, that we are the example that you want us to be, that we are Jesus walking this earth. Father, we thank you so much for loving us. We ask you now to bless this food that's been prepared. We pray that as we eat and enjoy, that we can use the energy from it to encourage someone, to be a blessing to someone, and just to be uplifting in our community and our home and our life. All this we ask in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.